This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
You are what you watch. Hello, good evening. My name is Harrington Watco. Welcome to this program, Talk to Me. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we really know about security? 10, 20, 30 years ago, like the way it is today, we have security guards. Now, with what we know in the press, what we hear on TV, what we watch, it tells us that we may need more security. But how much security do we need and from whom? The government, the politicians, the raiders of what you call the Muslims, etc., the fundamentalists, the Philippine National Police, the Army, what have you. Who exactly are we supposed to be watching for? Now, of course, meron yung middle class, meron yung low class, meron yung rich. Yung rich always want to be secured. Siyempre, bantayan nila, family nila, jewels, money, etc. But the middle class, likewise, needs security because especially where they live, that may be side by side. They're more volatile, diba? And then you have the poor. But no one escapes criminality. The poor, the middle class, or the rich. There will always be those that will be going around trying to take more of what is not theirs. This is crime. And mind you, we don't have the franchise for crime all over the world. It's not necessarily that we have the highest crime either. Now, what we need to do, however, is to get secured. But who should get secured? How do we get secured? Ang mahal naman kukuha ng security guard, papakainin mo pa. Paupo-upo doon, bibigyan mo pa ng uniforme. Eh, malay mo kung kasabot yung security guard sa magnanakaw, parang ganon. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about security and we're going to talk about technology, how both have come together and how both can actually help us in securing our properties, our lives, etc. With us, we have Derek Ramsey. Now, hang on. Senior, Derek Ramsey. Ito po ang tatay ni, well, the celebrity Derek. But, ladies and gentlemen, Derek Ramsey is not here because he's just a father or whatnot. Let me give you a short background. The man is a security expert. He's a specialist on security gadgets, software, hardware, be it for profiling, the theoretical points of view as well as experience. He was also with the Scotland Yard. Sa Inglaterra po yan, going all the way up, working his way, gathering all the experience over the decades to come and settle here in the Philippines, to apply his expertise. And now that has one of the top, if not probably the top security group in town, not just agency. It's called Guard All Security Technology Systems, Inc. Ladies and gentlemen, Derek Ramsey. Hi, Derek. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, Harry, for having me.
We have a very unusual show. It's nice because for a change, we get to hear someone from the security side to tell us how security should work. I guess my first question would be, who should get security?
My guess is that everybody needs it to a certain extent.
What if I'm not a politician? I'm not a celebrity. I don't have 100 million. I may have 2, 3 million, but I put it in the bank, or I might have even 10. I don't walk around with gold watches and run a Mercedes. I have maybe 1 or 2 Toyotas or something like that. Middle to high, or okay, well-to-do. Not very high-end living or high-end village. Who requires that security? Why everyone?
Let's take that theory. I mean, even if you're living in a fairly small shanty, you know,
Yeah.
we have many of those, unfortunately, in the Metro Manila area. And I'm sure those people who are able to save a little money or they have the family heirlooms, they'll probably put them in a small metal box with a little key. That is security.
That is security.
You know, and they'll hide it under the bed.
Yes, some don't even put their monies in the banks. I mean, to think that credit card systems in this country is still at a very infant stage. There's only 2% or 3% that actually use it, and just about the same percentage that are insured. Who exactly? You're saying that all of us need security, but isn't security tantamount to expense? It's costly.
If you're talking about security systems, yes, it can be expensive. And that's why I like to think that my company has been reasonably successful here in the last 28 years, is that we actually look at it normally the other way. We don't look at how much we can sell to a client. We look at what we can give a client at a reasonable cost to him.
Meaning someone can come to you and say, I have 100,000, I have 200,000, I have 500,000. This is what I want to spend for security, and you work backwards. Not necessarily that in that direction.
I'd love to think that people would come up to me and ask for 500, or offer me 500,000. No, my salespeople and myself, we will try to gather enough information talking to a client what we think his budget is. I would never ask a client for his budget because it's going to affect the way that you design the system. What we're looking at is, what is this person trying to protect? How can we supply that in the best possible way that it won't affect his day-to-day life? You know, because if a security system affects your day-to-day life too much, you're going to turn it off.
Yeah, you're right, because it becomes a nuisance.
I've seen it happen so many times. The amount of times I've had people ring me up, Mr. Ramsey, I have an electronic security system in my house, and I haven't used it for 3 months, 6 months, because it's always going off at 3 o'clock in the morning, or whatever, you know, the neighbours are complaining, etc. And I say, well, have you not rung the person that supplied it to you? They don't exist anymore, or no, I can't get hold of them.
Yeah, typical supplier here, run off.
Yeah.
So what you do is you study the client, find out what exactly he wishes to get secured for, and then you work backwards.
Yes.
And technology you bring in based on what he requires. Or you also tell him, you dictate what he needs.
Well, you know, when I started Guardall, if I can just go back before the Guardall days, why I started up Guardall, yeah? When I first came to the Philippines, I basically had two major things to get over. One was the difference in culture.
Very different from the UK.
Very different from the UK. And the other one, of course, was getting used to the way things were done here, and the weather, which is, apart from my beautiful wife, was probably the second reason I'm here.
All right. What's the first? The weather?
My wife, of course.
My wife. Okay, there you go. Go ahead, please, carry on.
So I spent 2 years with my father-in-law, who's unfortunately deceased now, and it was nice for me because I was delivering medical supplies all over the Philippines. Mindanao, Mindoro. I traveled all over the Philippines.
This was your work, medical supplies?
It was just helping my father-in-law, but it gave me the great benefit of seeing that even within the own country, the different cultures, the different dialects.
Right, you were exposed.
The dialects, of course, drove me crazy because there were just
it
so
drives
many.
me crazy still.
I bet it does, yeah. But, you know, it gave me a huge insight that the majority of the Philippines does speak English in one way or another. And it was an incident in Mindanao, funnily enough, where I don't know if you can remember, there was a very large Australian aid project called PADAP.
Not really, but go
the
ahead.
Philippine Australian Development Assistance Program. And basically they were helping the province of Zamboanga del Sur to grow upland rice, farm to market roads, etc., with the assistance.
An agri-project, yes.
Yeah. And there were over 100 Australian consultants assisting down there. Very, very unfortunately, 2 of those consultants got shot on a national highway in Zamboanga del Sur. This was 1981.
Okay.
And I got called down there with the Australian government to do a report to explain whether in fact it was safe to continue living. And I'm glad to say they accepted the fact that this was a one-off type of thing, and that with the proper contingencies and plans, it was safe to stay there. And in fact, the project went on till 1984. when I sort of finished that, I started becoming a consultant. It was a natural progression from having been a fairly senior police officer in England. And I worked for the big multinationals, and I worked with San Miguel and Coca-Cola.
On security.
Yes. And my advice nearly always was reduce the guards, because guards have an effective point up to a certain amount. If you over guard, you get complacency creep in and other things that can cause more trouble than having no guards at all. But the majority of my recommendations were different types of electronic security. CCTV, which was very new.
Very, very new
in
then.
that time. Access control, which was virtually unheard of. And then various types of alarm systems, etc. And of course the big boys then said, well, okay, Mr. Ramsey, we like what you said. We understand we may have to put up a capital expenditure, but long term it could save us a considerable amount of money.
It does.
Who's going to do it?
That's the problem.
And at that time there was...
That's when you realize, that was the opportunity.
I saw it as an opportunity, yeah. And a lot of people don't believe me, but I actually went to Naia, and I saw two returning engineers coming back from Saudi Arabia, and I'd got the general idea that you know, overseas contract workers didn't normally come back very often, and more often those that did really didn't want to go back again. You know, although they were
Fair assumption.
although they were going to get considerably
assumption,
more
yeah.
money, it wasn't quite the pavements painted with gold that they thought it was in the first place. So I grabbed these two guys and I said, look, I've just started a business. I've got no engineers. Would you work with me? And they said, sure. And I was able to pay them enough money, not what they were getting in Saudi, but enough
Fair.
money to make it interesting for them. And we started just around the corner from here in Don Pablo building,
All
30
right.
square meters. And that was in November 1986.
Right at the revolution. People power.
I could tell you a lot of stories about that, but anyway, we got through all of that. First 2 years, like any business, was extremely hard. But by 1988, 89, we were nearly 30 engineers and technicians. And today we're 186.
Jesus.
And we also have an office in Cebu to cover Visayas and
But-
Mindanao.
You say you grew with engineers. What do engineers have to do with security?
Well,
The technology,
electronic engineers,
electronics.
okay? And of course, when I mention engineers, they were the people I needed at that time. People who, I would say, probably 1/3 of my technical staff are from Mapua.
Engineering.
That type of, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've got the communication engineers,
Yes,
you've
yes,
got the
yes.
electronic engineers. You know, we even have civil engineers, because often we have civil works
Yes,
involved.
civil works.
Because now we do turnstiles, we do X-ray machines, we do walk-through metal detectors, and the list goes on and on. Yeah?
Okay, we're going to have to take a short break. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about the technology that expands the hardware. When we come back, we'll go into the actual security detail, how an idea, where it all starts, basically the idea, and how to use that technology. And then, of course, eventually, we'll try to reserve that for the third episode, where we'll do the history of Mr. Derek Ramsey. Stay with us, we'll be right back.